Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So today we will be discussing penultimate chapter of seventh canto, chapter 14, entitled "Ideal Family Life." Very, very relevant for all of us. Extremely relevant and extremely practical to for all of us. And there will be one more chapter left in this seventh canto. And after that we'll be moving to eighth canto. We may have some chapter summaries after the completion. So very interesting, very practical chapter today. So if you are in a position to read, please raise your hand symbol, so we can request you to read accordingly. So let me do the short invocation, and then we can get on to the subject. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham. Namo Om Vishnupadhaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in the last few chapters, the focus was on Varna and Ashrama, different spiritual orders and different social orders. And previous chapter there was very lot of focus on brahmachari and then vanaprastha sannyas life. In this chapter, the main focus is given to Grihastha ashram, the householder life. Being in any spiritual order, either celibate, brahmachari or vanaprastha, sannyas or grihastha, anyone can go back to the Godhead. So there are, for each spiritual order, there are certain rules and regulations. So grihasthas, householders, can also go back to Krishna. And that's why this chapter is entitled Ideal Family Life. Right, let's begin. So there are first 18 verses, very simple and practical. I think, doesn't require much explanation, but we'll be reading some of the purports, etc. Okay, Jishamataji, please go on reading first 18 verses.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. I don't know whether my laptop is making that sound. Is it okay? Is it clear, Prabhuji?
It's all right. It's all right.
Thank you. Text 1. Maharaj Yudhishthira inquired from Narada Muni, O my lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. Text 2. Narada Muni replied, My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through association of great devotees of the Lord. Text 3 and 4. A Grihastha must associate again and again with saintly persons, and with great respect he must hear the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations, as these activities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Thus, one should gradually become detached from affection for his wife and children, exactly like a man awakening from a dream. Text 5. While working to earn his livelihood as much as necessary to maintain the body and soul together, one who is actually learned should live in human society unattached to family affairs, although externally appearing very much attached. An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, "Yes, that is all right." But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled.
Yeah, so we'll take a pause there,
Okay.
and then you can read the rest after our little discussion. Here, Yudhishthir Maharaj is a great devotee. We all know, very dear to Krishna. Um, but yet he is posing this question so that we can benefit. So these saintly people, they always ask questions, and these great devotees, they ask questions, and they are relevant, very much relevant to us. Actually, they will benefit us when we hear the answer. So he is posing himself that oh, we householders, staying at home, how can we attain liberation, like that? So Narada Muni's point was, so householder must earn, number one, uh, and they have to do a legitimate work, make a living lawfully, um, and then he says an important thing. Then they should offer the results of the work to Krishna Vasudeva. Huh? Vasudevarpanam. Everything should be offered to Vasudev. This is given clearly. Hmm? And and how to satisfy Krishna or Vasudeva should be understood from the saintly people. So, and then one should, a Grihastha should associate with saintly person again and again, and hear from them regularly about the Lord's activities and pastimes. uh, Thereby, one will develop detachment. And it is said, again and again one should hear. Uh, Abhikshanam, the word Sanskrit word is Abhikshanam. Abhikshanam means always. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that don't think that, if you have read Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, don't think that it's finished, but keep on doing it. Abhikshana means it's continuous process. When you read second time, you get different realization. Third time, another realization. So, um, so Grihasthas earn livelihood lawfully, offer the results of their work to Lord Krishna. And how to do this should be learned from associating, by association of saintly people, and by hearing from them on a regular basis. One should hear the Puranas and all the scriptures which glorify the Lord and his activities. Hmm? And it is said that so one should live in the human society and but deep unattached. Hmm? So that's the point. Just like lotus leaf in contact in with the water, although the lotus leaf is in contact with the water, when you pull out it doesn't get moistened. Similarly, grihasthas should also live in the human society, and externally, they should be doing, but internally they are detached. Hmm? Externally they are attached to the world, internally they are attached to Krishna. And the sixth is very important for all of us. Number six. So I'll read it again. An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. Okay. If there are any suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that's right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. Sometimes you have to externally say yes to our friends, family members. If they are Krishna conscious, it's all right. But if they are not, then externally say yes. But don't create a cumbersome life uh, where the purpose of life is not fulfilled. So this is very interesting. Narada Muni is also saying that sometimes externally you agree something, don't create unnecessary, but internally don't. You just say sometimes you have to say yes to some of the things, like that. So text six is very important. Um, okay, Mataji, let's continue reading from seven onwards.
Text 7. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are of three types: those produced from the sky, from rainfall, from the earth, from the mines and the seas or the fields, and from the atmosphere, that is, that which is obtained suddenly and unexpectedly. Text 8. One may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required to maintain body and soul together, but one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. One should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. Even if one is a householder rather than a brahmachari, a sannyasi or vanaprastha, one should not endeavor very hard for religiosity, economic development, or satisfaction of the senses. Even in householder life, one should be satisfied to maintain body and soul together with whatever is available with minimum endeavor according to place and time by the grace of the Lord. One should not engage oneself in ugra karma. Dogs, fallen persons, and untouchables, including chandalas, dog eaters, should all be maintained with their proper necessities, which should be contributed by the householders. Even one's wife at home, with whom one is most intimately attached, should be offered for the reception of guests and people in general. One so seriously considers one's wife to be his own that he sometimes kills himself for her or kills others, including even his parents or his spiritual master or teacher. Therefore, if one can give up his attachment to such a wife, he conquers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never conquered by anyone.
We'll take a pause there. Um, so in this section, while it is said that while Gruvastha trying to make a living, one should not over endeavor. So that is over endeavor is called ugra karma. Ugra karma. So we should endeavor, but not over endeavor. And this is mentioned several times. This particular point that one should claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required, but one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. So Prabhupada writes here that Grihastha, when they have excess money, of course, there is a formula given by Rupa Goswami. Does anybody remember Rupa Goswami's formula for distributing wealth? Who remembers?
Was it 50%?
Yes, 50 percentage to?
I thought it was to Krishna, actually, to the...
Yes, and the remaining 50?
Was it 25% and then the 25% kept in store, or was the 25% split down again?
Yes, something like that. So 50%, this is Rupa Goswami's formula that after all expenses, then you have savings. In the saving, if you have savings, like if you have to pay mortgage and all, that's a different story. But if you have savings, so he says that 50 percentage to Krishna, 25 percentage to family, relatives, and then 25 percentage can be kept for emergency. So we can follow whatever extent we can, but the idea is that when we have wealth, it should be used in Krishna service, by feeding saintly people, by giving donation. You have to make sure, of course, your money is well utilized. This is Grihastha charity is one of the important aspect. So firstly, not to over endeavor. And sometimes we work too hard. We don't have time for any spirituality. Should not be like that. So, and if you have excess money, that money should be distributed, used for good causes. And so what else? And it is said that these poor animals, the innocent animals such as deer, camel, asses, monkeys, mice, even snakes, birds, flies, they should be treated as Grihastha should treat them as their own children. Because these are innocent animals. What is the big difference between these and the children? So yeah, so Prabhupada writes, this is Grihastha, spiritual Grihastha is a real communist. In communist countries, they kill poor animals. They don't give proper consideration to animals. But a Vaishnava Grihastha, householder, is a very good communist, spiritual communist. So he distributes food and looks after these innocent animals. So proper rice, they should not be killed, but they should be looked after. So where are we? Yeah. So, and your family members, scriptures tell us that rather than, we should engage our family members in the service of Vaishnavas. We invite guests and we offer some service. And so that is the best way to engage our family members. Hmm? Yeah, so let's move on. So next 6 verses from 13.
Text 13. Through proper deliberation, one should give up attraction to his wife's body because that body will ultimately be transformed into small insects, stool, or ashes. What is the value of this insignificant body? How much greater is the Supreme Being who is all pervading like the sky? An intelligent person should be satisfied with eating prasada, food offered to the Lord, or with performing the 5 different kinds of yajna, panchashuna. By such activities, one can give up attachment for the body and so-called proprietorship with reference to the body. When one is able to do this, he is firmly fixed in the position of a Mahatma. Every day, one should worship the Supreme Being who is situated in everyone's heart, and on this basis, one should separately worship the demigods, the saintly persons, ordinary human beings, and living entities, one's forefathers, and one's self. In this way, one is able to worship the Supreme Being in the core of everyone's heart. When one is enriched with wealth and knowledge which are under his full control and by means of which he can perform yajna or please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must perform sacrifices, offering oblations to the fire according to the directions of the Shastras. In this way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 17. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the enjoyer of sacrificial offerings. Yet, although his lordship eats the oblations offered in the fire, my dear king, he is still more satisfied when nice food made of grains and ghee is offered to him through the mouths of qualified brahmanas. Therefore, my dear king, first offer prasada unto the brahmanas and the demigods, and after sumptuously feeding them, you may distribute prasada to other living entities according to your ability. In this way, you will be able to worship all living entities, or, in other words, the supreme living entity within every living entity.
Thank you, Mataji. So, in these verses, it is mentioned that better we engage our family members in the service of the Lord, and thereby, we actually, there is too much attachment sometimes to the towards partner's body, but by engaging in the service together, that will be purified. And so one should eat only prasad. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Yajna Shishtasinaha Santa Muschantok Sarva Kilbishai Bunjate te Tvagam Papam Ye Pachanti Atma Karanat. So, first the food should be offered to Lord, and then one should accept prasad. Otherwise, one is considered as a thief because the food is actually given by the Lord. So that worship should be there, and every day one should worship the Supreme Lord. And the respect should be offered to demigods. Whenever you see demigod, they should be offered respect, thinking they're parts of the Lord. Saintly people should also be offered respect. forefathers, etc. And the best yajna, that we can do, sacrifices mentioned for Grihastha. There are different sacrifices, but in Kali Yuga, recently our Purna Mataji was telling in one of the house programs that Harer Nama Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, Gatiranyatha. The best yajna is the Sankirtan yajna. Harinam should be done. So how the Lord is pleased? So it is mentioned here there is one recipe given that he is more satisfied when the nice food made up of grains and ghee is offered to him through the mouths of qualified brahmanas. So when we prepare bhoga, we offer to the Lord, that becomes prasad, and that should be distributed. And mainly, who should receive first? The qualified Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, they should be offered. So Krishna eats through the mouths of these qualified Brahmanas. So that is an important aspect. And so therefore, it is said, first Brahmanas, and prasad should be offered to Brahmanas, demigods also. Demigods also sometimes, when there is a festival of demigod. So what we do is, we offer bhoga to Lord Krishna and then offer that prasad to that particular demigod. So we will read the purport of the 18. So, to distribute prasad to all living entities, the process is that we first offer prasad to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. For the demigods are represented by the Brahmanas. So Prabhupada says, demigods are represented by Brahmanas, and so you offer to Brahmanas. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, will be worshipped. This is the Vedic system of offering prasad. Whenever there is a ceremony of distribution of prasad, the prasad is offered first to the Brahmanas, then to the children. So in our temple, children gets first. At 2:45, they take, separate prasad upstairs. Brahmanas first, then children and old men, and then to the women, and then to animals like dogs and other domestic animals. When it is said that Narayana, the Supreme Being, is situated in everyone's heart, this doesn't mean that everyone has become Narayana or that particular poor man has become Narayana. Such conclusion is rejected. So just because Lord is there in the heart of everyone, you should not call them Daridra Narayana. It's not like that. So, yeah, so this is how the Grihastha should distribute prasad to various beings. So, now we'll move on to the next section. Is anybody in a position to read other than Jisha Mataji? Okay, so no hands raised. So I will try. So let me see, only Jisha Mataji, that's fine. So in the next section, 19 to 33, so in the first section, 19 to 26, the auspicious times to perform religious acts were given. So oblations to forefathers. Okay, Ambara Prabhu. So please read from 19 till 26.
Yes. A Brahmana who is sufficiently rich must offer oblations to the forefather during the dark moon fortnight in the latter part of the month of Bhadra. Similarly, he should offer oblations to the relatives of the forefathers during the Mahalaya ceremonies in the month of Ashvina. Text 20 to 23. Yeah. One should perform the Shraddha ceremony on the Makara Sankranti, the day when the sun begins to move north, or on the Karkata Sankranti, the day when the sun begins moving south. One should also perform this ceremony on Mesa Sankranti day and the Tula Sankranti day in the yoga named Vyatipata, on that day in which 3 lunar tithis are conjoined during an eclipse of either the moon or the sun, on the 12th lunar day, and in Sravana Nakshatra. One should perform this ceremony on the Akshaya Tritiya day, in the 9th lunar day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartika. On the 4 Astakas in the winter season and cool season, on the 7th lunar day, the bright fortnight of the month of Magha, during the conjunction of Magha, Nakshatra, and the full moon day, on the days when the moon is completely full or not quite completely full, when these days are conjoined with nakshatras from which the name of certain months are derived, one should also perform the Shraddha ceremony on the 12th lunar day when it is in conjunction with any of the nakshatras named Anuradha, Sravana, Uttara Falguni, Uttara Sada, Uttara Bhadrapada. Again, one should perform this ceremony when the 11th lunar day is in conjunction with either Uttara Falguni, Uttara Sada, or Uttara Bhadrapada. Finally, one should perform this ceremony on days conjoined with one's own birth star, Janma Nakshatra, or with Shravana Nakshatra. Should I continue? Text 24. All of these seasonal times are considered extremely auspicious for humanity. At such times, one should perform all auspicious activities, for by such activities, a human being attains success in his short duration of life. Text 25. During these periods of seasonal change, if one bath in the Ganges, in the Yamuna, or in any other sacred place, if one chants, offers fire sacrifice, or execute vows, or if one worships the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the forefathers, the demigods, and the living entities in general, whatever he gives in charity yields a permanently beneficial result. Text 26. O King Yudhishthira, at the time prescribed for reformatory ritualistic ceremonies for oneself, one's wife, or one's children, or during funeral ceremonies and annual death ceremonies, one must perform the auspicious ceremonies mentioned above in order to flourish in fruitive activities. Hare Krishna.
We can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. So this section is a little elaborate with regards to auspicious times, especially the Shraddha ceremony is offered to the forefathers and those who have departed from this world. And there are certain days that's mentioned, Sankranti, Makara Sankranti, Karkataka Sankranti, like that. So yeah, some specific times are mentioned for conducting this that becomes auspicious. And also certain times you take you bathe in Ganga and Yamuna. That is also mentioned. Uh, yeah, so it is said that the auspicious ritualistic activity can be performed on the birthday of one's own birthday or children's or family members. um, that is mentioned. So the Vedas recommend many ritualistic ceremonies to be performed with one's wife on birthdays of one's children or during funeral ceremonies. And there are also personal reformatory methods like initiation. These must be observed according to time and circumstances and the directions of the Shastra. Bhagavad Gita strongly recommends Jnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam. Everything must be performed as indicated in the Shastra. For Kali Yuga, the Shastras enjoin that Sankirtan Yajna performed always. So for us, the best is Om Apavitra Pavitrova Sarvavastam Gatopiva Yas Maret Pundari Kaksham Sa Bhaya Bhyantra Shuchi. So this is a mantra that we chant to purify externally, internally, just by remembering Lord Krishna. So it will be purified. Prabhupada writes in the purport, Sankirtan Yajna should be performed. Kirtaniya Sadahari, always chant Hare Krishna mantra. All the ritualistic ceremonies recommended in the Shastras must be preceded and followed by Sankirtan. So this is a very important point, that whatever you do, and ultimately it should be concluded with this chanting of the holy names. So in the 70th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is said, in the yajna, the priest should be offered remuneration, and then there should be distribution of prasad, and there should be glorification of the Lord. These three things must be there. And so I remember one incident. So from Bhagavatam. So you remember this? We all remember the story of Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj, he offered, he promised to offer three pieces of land to Vamandev. But his spiritual master, Shukracharya, revealed that this dwarf, dwarf Brahmana, is actually none other than Supreme Lord. He will take away everything from you. So you can lie, you can break your promise, and it should be fine. Breaking promises, he quotes scriptures that breaking promise in certain conditions will not incur any sin. He says, "Oh Bali Maharaj, you are going to lose all your wealth. So you can, I'm telling you, I'm your spiritual master. You can break your promise." But however, Bali Maharaj said, "No, if it is Supreme Lord, let it be. It's better to give away everything. Everything belongs to Him. I had given my word. I will not take it back. Everything belongs to Him," like that. So, and then Shukracharya curses him, right? What was the curse? Anybody remembers? Because you did not follow my injunctions, my orders, you go and live in the hell. So anyway, so we know the story that Lord Vamandev occupies three worlds and takes away everything from Bali Maharaj. And at the end, so Vamandev asks, what is the fault? tell me the fault in your disciple. You are not happy with your disciple, tell me the fault. And he says this famous verse, that, oh my Lord, when you are glorified, when your holy name is chanted, everything becomes auspicious. There may be faults with uttering mantras. There may be fault in performing the religious ceremonies. There may be fault in obtaining the pure ingredients for the sacrifice. And there may be fault in choosing the right time and the right place, etc. There may be so many faults. But however, if your holy name is uttered, everything will be purified. So this is a wonderful verse. I will try and find that verse and put it in the group. Okay, so and the next section talks about the places suitable for spiritual activities. So yeah, any place where a Vaishnava is available is an excellent place for all auspicious activities. It is clearly mentioned. The temple where the deity of the Lord is installed is most sacred place. So previously, in the previous section, we talked about the time, and here about the place. What kind of place we should choose for our worship or conducting ceremonies. So basically, they should, where the Lord is being worshipped, where there is Vaishnava, where are pure Brahmanas. So that place is very important. Where Krishna is worshipped, and where the sacred rivers flow. They are also very pious and very effective. And sacred lakes like Pushkara. Now is the time of this Kumbh Mela. So this is also a very auspicious place. Places like Gaya, Prayag, Naimisharanya, and Badrikashram, Varanasi, Dwaraka, Mathura, Prabhasa. All these places are considered to be very sacred. One who intends to advance spiritual life may visit all these places and perform ritualistic ceremonies to get results 1,000 times better than the results of the same activities performed in any other place. So we'll read a little purport. I think Prabhupada writes. Oh, it's a big purport. Yeah. So Prabhupada writes, so number one is the deity, where the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the devotees, most significant. The Krishna conscious movement is giving the population of entire world a chance to take advantage of Krishna consciousness through the ISKCON center, where one may perform deity worship and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and in this way obtain the result of effectiveness increased by 1,000 times. This constitutes the best welfare activity for human being. This was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission as it was predicted by him. So Prabhupada says that all his centers are very pious, very pure places, so one can visit them and chant there and get the benefit. Okay. We will move to the last section. So in the last section, So let's see. Is anyone willing to read some of the verses? You have to unmute, I think, Shri.
Can you make the screen any bigger?
Yes, from 34 till 38.
Okay, sure. O King of the earth, it has been decided by expert learned scholars that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in whom all that is moving or non moving within this universe is resting, and from whom everything is coming, is the best person to whom everything must be given. O King Yudhishthira, the demigods, many great sages and saints, including even the four sons of Lord Brahma, and I myself were present at your Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. But when there was a question of who should be the first person worshipped, everyone decided upon Lord Krishna, the Supreme Person. The entire universe, which is full of living entities, is like a tree whose root is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Achyuta, Krishna. Therefore, simply by worshipping Lord Krishna, one can worship all living entities. Is this Yatatar or Mulan slow verse?
This is another verse, but the same meaning.
Uh-huh. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has created many residential places like the bodies of human beings, animals, birds, saints, and demigods. In all of these innumerable bodily forms, the Lord resides with the living being as Paramatma. Thus, he is known as Purushavatara. O King Yudhishthira, the supersoul in every body gives intelligence to the individual soul according to his capacity for understanding. Therefore, the supersoul is a chief within the body. The supersoul is manifested to the individual soul according to the individual's comparative development of knowledge, austerity, penance, and so on.
Yeah, so we'll take a pause there. And here, for Grihastha, it is mentioned, in the previous section that Vasudevarpanam, everything should be offered to the Lord Krishna. But again, here it is further clarified. huh? So who should they worship? This is the question. huh? Um, here it is said, Harer evaika urvisha yanmayam vaya characharam. So, who is the root of this entire universe? Krishna is the root, and he should be worshipped. Everything is coming from him. So that's why it is clearly mentioned that Krishna should be worshipped. And so he gives one example. Narada Muni gives example to Yudhishthir Maharaj. You see, like in the Rajasuya Yajna, there were demigods. Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma were also there. Many sages were there. But who was chosen to worship? The first worship was given to Krishna. So Narada Muni cites this example to Yudhishthir Maharaj. And here it is mentioned. So yeah, this entire universe is with full of living entities, is like a tree, and whose root is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So Krishna is compared as a tree, a root for this entire tree of the universe. Simply worshipping Krishna, one can worship all living entities. So when we pour water at the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree gets nourished. And similarly, the root for this entire universe is Krishna. So, Yasmin Tushte, Jagat Tushte. By satisfying him, you satisfy everyone. And so here another thing also mentioned, that super soul, Paramatma, as a super soul, Krishna lives in everybody's heart, everybody's in everybody. So we get the intelligence from super soul according to our purity and according to our austerity and penance, etc. So what does it mean? So when we render devotional service, Krishna gives more intelligence to us. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam ye namamupayanti. Krishna says, for those who worship me with loving devotion, I give them the right intelligence with which they can come to me. Being seated in their heart, I destroy the ignorance and also give the shining lamp of knowledge. So that is mentioned. And so then the final section talks about um, sometimes neophyte devotees, they worship the Supreme Lord, but they do not. They are envious of authorized devotees. Hmm? So I mentioned one thing. Yeah. So it should not be the case. Hmm? Prabhupada writes that preaching is more important. Of course, as an individual, we should have a daily worship at home. There should be a regular program of worship at home. But here it is mentioned that preaching is more important. And those who worship the deity in the temple, they should offer respects to the preachers. Of course, preachers should have good conduct. Yeah. And sometimes, neophyte, they respect the Lord, but they don't treat the devotees well. This is another character of a neophyte devotee. But as one advances, one also respects the devotees. So among all persons, Brahmana must be accepted as the best within this material world. And then in the final verse, I'll read it out. 39. Yeah. So we'll read the purport. There is a little difference. Prabhupada explains about a Brahmana and Vaishnava. So this verse talks that Brahmana is great. Prabhupada says that the Vaishnava is superior to a Brahmana, because whereas a Brahmana knows that he is a Brahman, not a matter. A Vaishnava knows that he is not only Brahman, but is also eternal servant of the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, worship of a Vaishnava is superior to worship of the deity in the temple. Okay. Yeah, that's why we offer worship to the spiritual master. So worship of a Vaishnava is superior to worship of the deity in the temple. Why is Vaishnava is worshipped? Because he is the servant of the Lord. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, Sakshadaritvena samasta shastrai. In all the scriptures, spiritual master, who is the best of the Brahmanas, the best of Vaishnavas, is considered to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This does not mean, however, that Vaishnava thinks himself God, for this is blasphemous. Although a Brahmana Vaishnava is worshipped as being as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a devotee always remains faithful servant of the Lord and never tries to enjoy the prestige that might accrue to him from being the Supreme Lord's representative. Okay, so the final verse, my dear Yudhishthir, the Brahmanas, especially those engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord throughout the entire world, are recognized and worshipped by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the heart and soul of all creation. The Brahmanas, by their preaching, sanctify the three worlds with the dust of their lotus feet, and thus they are worshipable even for Krishna. My goodness. So here Narada Muni gives this final, um, you know, mm, ultimatum, the essence. So Grihasthas must associate with the saintly people. It is said those who are engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord throughout the entire world, they are worshipped by the Supreme. Supreme Lord is like to worship these people. And we can understand the position of, Prabhupada in our own movement. So, understand how much dear is to Krishna. So by preaching, the saintly people, they purify three worlds with the dust of their lotus feet. So we'll read this final purport and end the session. As admitted by Lord Krishna in the Gita 18:16 and Nachatasman Manusheshu Kashin Me Priya Kruttamaha, the Brahmanas preach the cult of Krishna consciousness all around the world. And therefore, although they worship Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord also recognizes them as worshipable. The relationship is reciprocal. The Brahmanas want to worship Krishna, and similarly, Krishna wants to worship the Brahmanas. In conclusion, therefore, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas who are engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord must be worshipped by religionists, philosophers, and people in general. At Rajasuya Yajna of Maharaj Yudhishthira, many hundreds and thousands of Brahmanas were present, yet Krishna was selected to be worshipped first. Therefore, Krishna is always the Supreme Person, but by his causeless mercy, he recognizes the Brahmanas as dearmost to him. So, with that, this chapter ends. There are So this chapter is entitled Ideal Family Life. Talks mainly about the ideal household life. So in this chapter, Yudhishthir Maharaj asks question how the householders can be delivered, and Narada Muni explains the entire explains to that question in this chapter. And Grihastha should offer all the results of one's work to Krishna, be detached, devoted, neutral, simple, responsible, and maintains others as well. Hmm? So not over endeavor, legally, lawfully, make living, and when there is excess, that should be distributed, and even ideally, how it should be distributed to propagation of consciousness. For feeding devotees, excess money should be distributed, and Grihastha should always associate with saintly people, um, hear from them glories of the Lord on a regular basis, and there are some auspicious times to perform religious acts. There are some also auspicious places, but wherever um, the deity of Krishna is worshipped, wherever there are devotees, that place is auspicious. For Grihasthas, the deity worship is must. Every Grihastha must have a regular program of worship. In many homes, traditionally, they worship Shalagram Shila. Every day they bathe Shalagram Shila. It is simple, like, you offer some water and offer tulsi, and that's it, I think. And if you don't have Shalagram Shila, you can also worship Lord Krishna, Radharani, or Gaur etc. So that worship should be there, and Boga should be offered to the Lord, then it should be distributed. And so in a ceremony, the Brahmanas and the Vaishnava senior devotee should be offered prasad first, followed by children, followed by elderly women and others like that. So any place where you chant Krishna's name, that becomes spiritual, pure. And who should be worshipped? It is clearly said that Krishna entire universe is, if you consider the entire universe to be a tree, and its fruit is Krishna. So Krishna should be worshipped. By worshipping Krishna, you please everyone. And what else is mentioned? So the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas who preach the glories of the Lord are considered to be greatest. They're considered to be the best among the all people, and they are even worshipped by the Supreme Lord Himself. So for a Grihastha, respecting saintly people is must. Offering and inviting saintly people is very much purifying. So this is a very interesting chapter, very practical. So we concluded the chapter, and there is one more chapter, chapter 15. With that, we will conclude the entire 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments, any realizations, any questions? If not, we will conclude. I hope still everybody is there.
Hare
So,
Krishna.
in summary, are the Brahmanas, but Brahmanas and Krishna, if there are two, who should we worship first?
Mhm. Yes, so both should be worshipped. Both should be worshipped, but say if a Brahmana comes your home, a senior devotee, they should be worshipped. And when we are worshipping Krishna, we offer worship through our spiritual master. Both.
And how do we define Brahmana?
So it is said, Prabhupada writes here, basically this qualification of a Brahmana and a Vaishnava by character, not by birth. Generally, when you are born to a doctor, you have plenty of chances to become a doctor. So similarly, when you are born in a Brahmin family, you have plenty of opportunity to become a Brahmin. So Brahman is a generous, magnanimous person who worships Krishna and who preaches the glories of the Lord to other living entities. That is Brahman. Brahmajanati iti Brahmanaha. Yeah.
Prabhuji, I got the question about text 6. And I'm not too much clarified about, like, we need to listen to our family and everything, but we should do that superficially and ignore the things. So I'm just not really sure what that means.
Sure. That's a good point. Text 6 is mentioned. Say, for example, you have to be, see, this is what, so the essence of text 6 was that what is your goal? First define your goal. Our goal is to go
Worship
back to
Krishna.
the spiritual world. For that we need to engage in devotion while working here in this material world.
Yeah.
So several people say several things. Sometimes they say that don't go to Hare Krishna temple, don't attend Thursday Bhagavatam classes. Why are you wasting time? Why can't you do this? And if you read Bhagavatam, you will lose all your wealth. Hari will take away everything. And if you have Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, Mahabharata happens in the home. So many things, externally. They say sometimes you have to say yes to some of these things. Do not disturb. They say that why are you chanting Hare Krishna mantra 16 times, 16 rounds? You can chant one time and, get purified. They give different suggestions, you see. So externally, you just say their proposal, yeah, like this. And then, but internally, your program should be clear.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I did not explain that, but you have asked a good question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
So we don't
Prabhuji.
want to annoy them. Externally, we are still nice to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes our friend says, why do you go to Hare Krishna temple? It should be for old people. When you become 90, you should go if you leave that time. But this youth age, now you should enjoy like that. They have different suggestions also, many suggestions. You have to be clever.
Okay.
Transcendental trick.
Transcendental trick. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.